Taos News. Both Bob Shikokas and Joan started their careers in journalism, and both have launched themselves beyond journalism into fiction, nonfiction, and with Joan tonight, she's not going to read you an editorial from the Taos News. I think she might be booed out of here if she did. Now, what she's going to be reading for you is some of her young adult fiction, which she's shared a little bit with me. It's absolutely delightful, and she has some video to go with it. It's called The Twin Jinn, which is sort of her young adult fiction, and she just told me she's finished the first book, now she's working on her second. And she also, I think, is going to share a little bit of some of her adult fiction, a little piece from the Swanson Shuffle. Joan, like myself, grew up in New England, and she started out writing about small country life, you know, the cows and the plows and the barns. But I can relate to that because I went to UMass Amherst, and her beat, a lot of it was in Western Massachusetts. But I think she and her husband came here for many years, and how many years ago? 6? 6 years ago they were able to settle here. So we are all the more lucky that we have someone like Joan Livingston here. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Thank you, and thank you so much for this great opportunity. As Jen said, most of you probably know me as the managing editor of the Taos News, but I do have another life as a fiction writer. Tonight I'm going to read from The Twin Jinn, which is my novel for young readers and beyond. Let me tell you a little bit about it. The basic plot is a family of genies escape from their evil master and hide out in Happy Jack's Carnival of Mysteries, where they perform a magic act. The main characters are the 11-year-old twins, Jute and Fina, their brother and sister, and their parents, Elwyn and Mira Jinn. Now, the twins can do magic. I mean, they can shrink, they can go invisible, they can fly, they can cast spells, but only if their parents let them. They're supposed to be human kids, and if you're living in a carnival, that's not a bad thing. But there's an element of danger here because my premise is that all wealthy and powerful people have a genie making that happen. You know, that 1% we talk about. And because their master has lost them, he's also lost everything, so he's desperate to find them. People ask me when they can have a copy of the book, and my agent is working hard to find a home for the twins. And when that happens, believe me, the world will know. But tonight I have something really neat to share with you. I have a video that's inspired by the book. My son Ezra did the illustrations, my son Nate did the soundtrack, and my friend Ray from the Taos News helped us put it together. I think it gives you a really good feeling for the book, and so sit back and enjoy. And Asia's going to turn it on for me. If you go on YouTube and type, you know, The Twin Jinn, and you can see it as many times as you want. I'm going to start in the first chapter. The twins are playing Finder in the woods. The carnival stopped at this country fair, and Finder is the Jinn version of hide and go seek, except except that instead of hiding beneath something or behind something, you go invisible. And of course they lose track of time, and they have to run down to the midway to make the last show of the day. Finally the twins were near the stage. They stood on their toes, trying to see past the people who fill the space in front. The crowd grew bigger every show after people heard about the family's magic act, and they wanted to see it for themselves. Many came back for more than one show, trying to guess how the tricks were done, but they never could, because the Jinn family did magic, real magic. I hear Miss Polly's poodles barking, Jute told his sister. Oh, that means we're not late. Jute and Fina squeezed through the people until they reached Happy Jack backstage. Happy Jack was the MC for the show, and he said introducing the performers was one of the best parts of owning the carnival. The first act on the ticket was a family of acrobats from Italy, the Great Italianos, which was the stage name the Marino family used. There were 5 of them, from the papa and mama to the 3 boys, who were 2, 4, and 6. The 3 young Italianos shouted, "Hoopa, hoopa, hoopa," and swung their arms whenever their father tossed them in the air or held them over his head. The second act was Cowboy Roy, who worked with ropes and his horse Smokey. In the 3rd book, Cowboy Roy is going to retire to Taos, so. Cowboy Roy was really old, so was Smokey. Roy always seemed a little sad or angry. No one in the audience understood how hard his rope tricks were, or that he once used to be a famous star in Hollywood. He told Jute and Fina all about it. Often they visited Cowboy Roy, who built a campfire beside Smokey's trailer, while he told them stories about being in Western movies a long time ago. The movies had titles like The Sagebrush Kid and Outlaws on the Plains. He always played the good guy with the white hat. The 3rd act was Miss Polly and her poodles. They were on stage now. Polly, who was old like Cowboy Roy, waved a wrinkled hand and called out cheery words while a small dog with thin white hair climbed a ladder to a platform. Behind them, a band performed Miss Polly's song, Beautiful Dreamer, over and over. The twins cheered when the poodle finally reached the top of the ladder. Miss Polly raised both hands to encourage the crowd to applaud, which it did politely. But she kept smiling anyway as she tucked the poodle beneath her arm and fed it a treat. Miss Polly bowed. Jute and Fina knew what happened next. The poodles pranced around on their hind legs and barked. Happy Jack looked down at the twins. "Well, where are your parents?" he asked. "They're here," Jute and Fina said together. Happy Jack's eyes flitted around the stage area. "I don't see them." "Don't worry, they're here. You'll see." Fina turned toward her brother. "It's time to get the basket." Jute ran behind the dogs' cages, and then he was back, holding a basket above his head so large he and his sister could fit inside together. Jute set the basket down. He and Fina took their places on either side as Happy Jack stepped to the center of the stage. Happy Jack wore a rumpled tuxedo and a top hat with dust on the brim. His face was as round as the moon, and he had a big, big smile most of the time. Happy Jack didn't use a microphone because he could make his voice loud enough so the people in the back row could hear him clearly. "Isn't Miss Polly a peach? And those poodles of hers, aren't they, darling?" Happy Jack shouted. The crowd clapped quietly as Miss Polly herded the poodles off stage. Happy Jack waited until they were gone. "Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for our next act. Maybe your neighbors have told you about it. I know I've never seen anything like it before." He cleared his throat. "I am talking about magic that will leave you speechless. I am talking about magic that will leave you spellbound and guessing." Happy Jack's voice grew louder and deeper as he stretched his left hand toward the side of the stage where Jute and Fina stood. "Sit back and enjoy the amazing magic of the family Jinn." The band's drummer tapped his sticks in a soft roll. "We're on," Fina whispered. Jute lifted one handle of the large basket. His sister took the other. They carried it toward the center of the stage amid the crowd's applause. The twins dropped the basket on the floorboards. They raised their arms and twirled in place. They reached over the basket's top so their fingers touched as they spun around it. The drummer's beat got louder, and then the flute player began a bouncy tune. Round and round the twins moved. The music swirled with them. And when the twins stepped back, their mother, Mira, rose from the basket, the blue fabric of her long dress fluttering around her so beautifully. Her hair was black, and her eyes were silvery blue like the twins. The audience cheered. Laughing, Mira climbed from the basket and reached for her children's hands. They danced together around the basket, spinning fast, then faster. Their laughter rang out, and those who watched got a little dizzy from the sight. Their feet were a few inches above the stage, although the dust drawn from its boards hid that from the audience. Mira and the twins sang a song no one in the crowd could possibly have heard unless they had seen the show. Then Elwyn, tall and thin and dark-haired like his wife and children, was upright in the basket. His arms were raised as he shouted, "Hala!" and in one effortless leap, he left the basket and stood barefoot on the stage. He wore a costume of black silk with loose sleeves and pants. Jute, Fina, and their mother Mira took their places beside him. The family bowed while the crowd clapped and shouted. thank you, kind people," Elwyn said. Elwyn held up one finger as if he remembered something important he had to do. He stuck his hand inside the basket and chuckled as 2 white doves flew upward. I thought it was a little crowded in there. Elwyn grinned at his family. "Thank you, my dear children and wife, for freeing us." Jute and Fina bowed. Their job was done. Their parents were taking over, so the twins skipped to the side of the stage and sat beside the poodles' empty cages to watch the rest of the yak with Happy Jack. For the next 20 minutes, their parents worked together, pulling scarves, flowers, or whatever they liked from the depth of the basket. They made objects appear and disappear. Elwyn lifted Mira into the air, and she fell backwards, floating onto the tip of his finger. Jute and Fina clapped with the audience. The twins had seen their parents perform many times since the spring, but they never tired of their magic act. Happy Jack hummed. "Your parents are something else," he told the twins. Happy Jack could not take his eyes from the stage. Neither could the people in the audience. They were concentrating so hard on what Elwyn and Mira were doing, anyone could reach inside their pockets and steal whatever they wanted. Now, Mira and Elwyn danced together on the stage. Their footwork was slow and smooth as they danced a sweetheart's waltz. They gazed into each other's eyes. Elwyn held Mira's hands as she climbed inside the basket and lowered herself until she was out of sight. He tipped the basket so everyone could see it was empty. Jute and Fina held their breath as their father stepped into the basket. His arms were up, and then he too was gone. The crowd was silent. Jute and Fina smiled. This was their favorite part of the act, when the audience realized 2 people had disappeared. The crowd got to its feet and cheered. That's when the twins ran on stage and bowed. They carried the basket in a wide circle before they left the stage. People were begging, "More, more."